Is Fizz tailored for low earlows? I can breeze through Diamond with a 70% win rate, one-tricking him, but once I hit like mid-masters, he feels very one-dimensional. Fizz probably isn't all that amazing at super high MMR anymore. He's like fairly, you know, he has his whole lane thing, right? He's not the best in lane, kind of reliant on jumping on you and killing you. Assassins tend to not scale very well with MMR, the majority of them. It's not all of them, but, you know, a lot of assassins tend to fall off as you get better and better and better, especially in Master Plus. But that said, like, I wouldn't say that Master Plus, good until Master Plus is low elo. Does that make sense? Master Plus is, like, pretty exceptional at the end of the day. And Fizz tends to be fairly good all the way up till very, very high MMR. A character who's, like, low elo skewed is, like, Briar or Old Master Yi, right? Where, like, Fizz is probably just has the standard weaknesses of a kind of a straightforward assassin when it comes to the highest level of the absolute highest level of play. Why did Riot start to print out champs way too quick in the last couple of seasons, and why are their new champ kits just so overtuned? This question got like 40k hours in game behind it. Toxic Tomek, I think the problem with your question is mainly like we aren't pumping out champs for starters. So like I think the thing is just like, let's go look at how many champs we do for a year, right? We'll start with that, because you're like, why are we just pumping these characters out? Does League need that many characters? LOL Wiki champion list. Over the last number of years, the pace of champions hasn't really changed much at all. If anything, it's gone down, right? So this year we've released 2, right? 2023 we released 4 champions. 2022 there was 5 champions. 2021 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 champions. 2020 was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know, some of these have some reworks in them, but like the number of champions we make per year has been pretty consistent. 2019, 5. 2018, 1, 2, 3. 2018 had the least number of champions. There's 3. This was a year with a lot of reworks in it, though. So if I look at the amount of champions we've been making recently, I would not really describe pumping out champions as like something we've been doing. If anything, champion pace has slowed down. There was only 4 last year, where normally we did 5, right? So we'll start with that. I think the idea that we making a ton is kind of just off. But then the other question then is, hey, but why are all the new champion kits just so overtuned? And like, I just also have a hard time understanding that one, right? So we'll start with this. I don't care if a champion comes out and it's too strong, because we can nerf it, right? Like, is it ideal if a champion comes out and it's too strong? No, that's not ideal. Like, ideally, when a champion comes out, we snap our fingers and it's perfectly balanced, right? But at the end of the day, everything is uncertain. And so what is less important is that a champion comes out perfectly balanced, and what is more important is a champion is easy to get into a balanced spot, right? So if a champion comes up overpowered and after, you know, 2 or 3 patches it's fine, I think that's okay. I don't think that's in the long term really all that bad or that problematic for the game. We shouldn't deliberately make champs OP, but in a world with uncertainty, where it's kind of hard to tell if any character will be OP or weak on release, like putting them, we try to get them as close to balance as possible. And so where the problem of an overtuned character comes in is a champion so strong that we can't get it into a good spot within a reasonable number of patches. And if you look at the recent releases, the only character in the recent years who's been this way has been K'Sante. K'Sante is the last character who's been like genuinely like fairly difficult to tune, and the people we're tuning him for, by the way, are pros. But like, and before K'Sante it was Zeri. Those are the 2 like really, really overtuned characters. Overtuned meaning like we needed to do like repeated things to like fix them as well, But like Milio, got a couple nerfs, he's fine. Nefiri, she had some nerfs, she's fine. Briar, she had some nerfs, she's fine. Hui came out incredibly underpowered, like just really, 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 really giga weak, and so we actually had to buff him a lot. Smolder came out OP, but you know, a couple nerfs, he was fine. Aurora, she came out seemingly pretty strong, and like I'm assuming after a couple nerfs she'll be fine. You know, it's too early to tell with her though. And then Skarner came out, and we've had to nerf him a few times. And so, yes, if you look at the pattern, well, it's not completely true that every character we released is strong on release. You know, Hui was the opposite; he was very weak. I would say the majority of characters we released in the last few years, within, you know, a few patches, have gotten into a fine state, and I think that's okay. And I think that's a result of taking risks, right? When you take a risk on a champion and, you know, try to like do cool things and make cool stuff, you're not always going to have a 100% hit rate. And so the important part is that it's sustainable and can be gotten into a good spot. And, you know, sometimes we really do miss. Like, Zeri was a big miss because of how much work it took to get her balanced, right? And K'Sante, we're still working on, like, trying to get him into the ideal spot, right? So, like, there are characters that, like, take that. But in the grand scheme of these things, I think a lot of these characters, like, after a month or two of release, like, generally got into, like, fairly decent spots for all things considered. Another thing to think about with the champions that, like, in quotes, come out overpowered is you can't balance a champion on release for its long-term balance state. That's generally a bad idea and will make the champion feel terrible. And what I mean by that is when a champion comes out, everybody in the game is going to be significantly worse at it because they're not going to know how to play it, right? Like, there's a reason that most champions come out and their win rates start around 40%, right? Because, you know, people are just going to learn how to play them, get better at playing them. Oh, shoot, I need those sacrifices. Learn how to play them, get better at playing them, right? And so on release, it is not necessarily, you know, champions are going to be a lot worse just because people don't know how to play them. But if you were to balance a champion, like, let's say we were like, we know that the long-term Briar is going to be this strong. Let's say we just, like, had a magic lamp and we could know exactly how strong Briar would be 6 months after release, right? And so we tune her to be like, once players completely master the champion in all ways, this will be perfectly balanced, right? The problem with doing that is that character, a character that you do that to, will be absolutely terrible to play on release. Not just for the person playing it, but for their teammates. Like, as Briar, as an example, came out at a 36% win rate. So imagine, and you know, she had to get a number of nerfs afterwards as people learned how to play her. But imagine, like, Briar came out at the exact, like, power level she is right now. That character's win rate would have been to the degree of, like, trolling for the vast majority of players. And so that's one hard part is, like, when a new character comes out, you've got a lot of people who are, you know, learning it and learning what it does, playing on people who have, you know, 200 days on their 200 games on their champion. And so a character coming out long-term balanced meaning, you know, like, where should they be in 6 months? Well, very often what that actually ends up doing is creating a very weak character that no one who plays it will really be able to find success on. And that, I would argue, is not ideal.